So essentially, what I've got is two parts to it. Let's do a quick bit of recap with regards to what we've done. Just a minute on that. So obviously, this is the Moodle platform. When you do sign into the platform, you would see that we've added something which is like a bit of an academic chatbot. Here, you're able to ask questions related to anything that you are studying in your subject area. So what I would do is obviously in order to access this chatbot, first I would do is basically sign in. And once you're signed in, what then tends to happen is you will go to your course. And when you're in your course, say, for example, now that you're signed in and you go to the reading part of the course, which is level two English reading, and assuming you have any questions, obviously we are going to be looking at covering some of the topics in these sessions. So these are the topics that we are going to be looking at in the reading part. But if you need to go across to and ask some questions, what I would suggest is click on the home here on the left. And when you click on the home, the part of it, it will take you to the home screen of Moodle. And when it takes you to the home screen of Moodle, that is where you are able to see some announcements, and obviously you are able to then use the chatbot. So, for example, how long is the English level two reading exam? So if you ask a question, what the chatbot we have done is we've trained it on about 13 million lines of code, and obviously it will be able to give you accurate answers in terms of any questions, anything that you have in your mind, anything which is a query or something that you want to inquire. Those are bits that you'll be able to straight away go in and ask. Now, um, apart from this, what we want to be able to look at is very briefly, in the readings part of the exam, essentially there are a couple of things that we have to go through. It is important, unlike the writing exam, reading involves a couple of sections which will be coming in the exam. So what we need to be able to do is understand some of these key, topics like comparing information, what is a fact, what is an opinion, how do we look at implicitly and explicitly, say something, and how do we look at areas in the exam when we do read a comprehension or a paragraph, that this is what the question is asking, this is what it is implying, this is what can be inferred from that text. What is the meaning of that text? Sometimes in English, you say that there's a miss between the cup and the lip. Now, this is an idiom or an acronym. Now, what does this actually mean? It is where we need to be able to derive the inference of this meaning of this sentence. There's a slip between the cup and the lip. So, when we do look at in this context, that when it is used in situations wherein we see that there is a difference between what you are trying to say and what you are trying to do, and that slight bit of difference is something that can actually make a difference. Or sometimes you're trying to gauge that this is a jump, or this is an area or a distance that I can jump. And obviously in your gauging, what you do is when you do that jump, you find that you've fallen short. So that bit in terms of a slip between the cup and the lip kind of situations is what we will be looking at. There are some textual features. These are textual features like when we look at a Word document, you have features or usage of features like images, bullet points, paragraph, you have highlighting of text, you have formatting of text. You sometimes use bold font, italics, or underline. And in terms of some of the textual features, you have percentages, statistics being quoted. So those are bits that you will look at. Tables being used, text boxes being used. Those are going to be what are called textual features. Reference material would be when people use and say something which is related to statistics, history, background, and there is a background to it, and that allows them to refer it in terms of footnotes or notes, which will provide additional reading or information related to what you are quoting it. Something like referencing that we do in our assignments. Then there are organizational features which are slightly different from textual features, because here what you're trying to do is you're organizing the sentence or the write up as a story. The story would have a starting point, would have a mid, and would have an end. Organizational features could also mean that you are writing, something which would be organized into, say, for example, a letter, or, for example, a paragraph, or a forum, or a blog, and that would be, something that we'll cover in organizational features. Analyzing text is simple. You have to look at sometimes dictionary, you have to look at meanings of the word, you have to look at analyzing things in terms of what the text means, what is it inferring, what is it saying, and the deeper evaluation of that typically tends to be the analysis of a text or a paragraph or a sentence that you would get. And then when you look at identify different styles of writing, there are different styles of writing. You have journalistic style, you have fictional writing style, you have academic writing style, you have formal writing style, and then there are writing styles which are related to both informal and informal style of English. But within that, you have academic, fictional, scientific, journalistic, and something which is very related to being fixed, and you don't faff around, which means you don't beat around the bush, but you're writing exactly what the meaning of the text is. And in such cases, that tends to be formal English style of writing, wherein you're writing using facts and figures. So those are the bits that you need to be aware of when we go into the comprehension bit related to reading part. Now, in order for us to get a look and feel in terms of what this would look like, and what this test would essentially, I would say, consist of, what we want to be able to do is look at a live paper, and that is where I will go across to this particular section of, the NCFE website, which basically, gives you the um, say, for example, the ability to be able to try out some practice assessments. So let's look at something on the reading side for specifically for level two, and let's look at opening this link. Now, when you do look at this particular link, it will come in as a test. It'll have a test code. When you come into the center, we'll obviously take you through it. It'll have your username, password, and obviously when we put the key code in, you'd be looking at prompting to start the test. Now, there are some terms and conditions which come in that obviously you have to accept, and then when you continue, that is where it'll come in and obviously say that now the test will start. Now, obviously, your aim is to answer all the questions. You're reading all the questions and the comprehension which come in quite carefully, so that you're able to, spot the answers or get the answers from the comprehension that you're reading. Now, in the test, there are going to be three sections. On the left, if you see, there's section one, which is about 8 questions. Section two, which is obviously about 6 questions, and then section three, which is again 7 questions. Now, each of these sections have particular mark. So section three is 9, you have section two, which is 10, so that is 19, and then section one is 11. So total of 19 plus 11, 20, 30 marks, which is the test, and that is what you would need to be able to look at. Now, let's look at going into some of these questions to understand what would come in the test and how does this relate to some of the bits that we have on Moodle in terms of the topic list that would be covered. Now, let's look at the first question. Now, what I would want you to see here is that if you look at before this particular set of 8 questions actually start, they are going to be all based on a particular text which has been given to you. Now, in this case, it is not very difficult to decipher that this text is a website. As you can see, there's a URL given. There are a couple of menu options on the top, and obviously in this case, as you would see, the document or the website page which has been picked up essentially shows you some sort of text and a topic which has been written. Now, first things first, what I would essentially go out and do is look at reading this for about a good 5 minutes to get a grasp of what the questions would be based on. So here it says travel just got smarter with Fair Travel Bus app. So this is an article or a web page, essentially, not an article, a web page essentially, which is informing its readers about the new bus app which has been created, which is an app on the mobile phone. And they start off by saying, you could book hassle-free tickets for public transport and get these tickets pretty much straight through your phone. Now, getting started, so it is giving you some instructions. Tickets made easy. It is giving some positive points about why this app would be useful, because it's going to make tickets electronically available, maybe stop wastage of paper, obviously time that you spend in terms of getting a physical ticket. So those are the kind of things which have been mentioned in this paragraph. Track your bus, that means this app would also provide interactivity. That means it will not be a static app, but it will be a dynamic app which would also provide you updates in terms of when the next bus is arriving. And it would, obviously create, if you are able to create alerts, then obviously it will also alert you whether the bus is running late and, when could be the next service. So scheduling and, timetabling of the bus schedule will also be available pretty much through the app. Now, plan smarter. Obviously, they are again highlighting a positive point that you'd be able to plan your journeys quite well. This app would allow you to simply enter a destination, then look at the route plan, look at the cheapest option in terms of bus fare, look at the fastest route for travel, and also the destinations that you travel frequently. You can favorite them, so you don't need to search them again and again. And then towards the end, it says committed to sustainability. So it is also pointing out and providing some information on why the app will be useful, because it will be environmentally friendly. That means it's going paperless, which means you would help in, you would do your bit in terms of helping the environment, wherein you're trying to get rid of the paper. And these are the bits that are going to be useful. Now, in the end, there is a box, which is a text box. It is highlighted blue in color. And obviously it says, fair travel, getting there together. It says low battery. You'd also be able to see that your phone, if it is running low on battery when you're trying to board the bus, it'll also allow you to look at doing and buying tickets with the phone, but the fares are non-refundable. And if your phone battery goes flat, it says it is going to be unable to review the digital ticket, and that would mean that you'll need to pay the driver for the journey you wish to take. So without the phone, and if the phone is non-functional because of battery outage or the battery discharging, then you would need to be paying the physical fare to the driver, which is and buying a ticket in such cases. So there is an eventuality also mentioned. And towards the end, if you see very carefully, there's a star or an asterisk, and it says at the time you cannot buy a disabled person pass using the app, and we recommend contacting your local council. Click here for more information. So some additional information on, if you have things like, if you want family passes, for example, there is a bit mentioned here with the asterisks. Or if you're disabled, you need a wheelchair access, things like that. What they're saying is you need to get in touch, and this app would not have that facility. So some additional information is provided as footnote, and obviously they've created a footnote by putting an asterisk, and that asterisk relates to this part. Now, having read this, what I would then look at is go and start answering the questions. Now it says give one way. That text one says digital tickets will be benefit to the environment. Because I've read this in detail, what I then need to do is I know it is coming from committed to sustainability. So using, I will make the answer quickly using the travel fair app will mean that printing of tickets will not be required, and hence it will help in environment sustainability. So keeping that in mind, that when you're writing, your spellings has to be correct because it's an English writing exam. So you could look at, obviously from here, I've inferred the answer, and what I've done is I've written in my own words. The other way could be going paperless eliminates the need for printing tickets and material landing up in landfill after use. This is also an answer, and I can pick this up straight from the paragraph and put it as it is, which is absolutely fine. And that answers my first question. Going to the next one, it says, give two quotations from text box one, which is this, that suggests bus app will save passengers time. Now, how will it save passengers time? So there are going to be two things. Buying tickets in seconds, fewer clicks. That is one way of obviously saving time. So what I'm going to do is copy it from here and put it here. And the next would be you're able to track your journeys and obviously save it as favorite information. So you'll with more accurate real-time information and interactive maps, you'll also be able to know when the bus is coming, running late. No need to worry. You'll be able to see exactly how long it takes. Now, the other bit in terms of convincing point argument would be, do you have somewhere you need to go? Planner will help you plan out quickest maps and show you all the bus stops and locations, so you know exactly where you're heading and how long will it take. So this part is going to be related to an argument which is going to help save time. So I can copy the text from the comprehension itself, from this text which has been given on the document on the left, and those would be the answers that are I'm writing for the paper, and they are absolutely acceptable. So according to text one, as you can see, every question will basically be related to this part of the text. Who should you contact about a disabled person? So here it says you should be contacting your local council. Straight away, simple answers, contact your local council. I'm going to correct this. The reason I say this is one cue that I get from what type of answers are required. If you see the size of the text box, you're not expected to write more than a few words and maybe just 2 lines. Anything going beyond that would give you an indication that you are going over the limit in terms of what is required, or maybe the answer that you've shortlisted or trying to write is not the right one. In text one, what is implied by the phrase taking the hassle out of public transport? So here, when it says taking the hassle out of public transport, this particular phrase here, what does it mean? We need to be able to understand this. This is where, when we look at the topic, um, topic list which is on Moodle. Let me bring that out. That topic list here, when it says identify implied and inferent meanings of the text, what we need to be able to do is go through this particular presentation, and this presentation would help us understand what and how do we infer a meaning of a text or a sentence which has been given, and what does it mean. So there are different ways to infer the meaning, and what does this imply. That is something that we need to be able to understand by looking at reading that sentence, and obviously reviewing this presentation. So what is the meaning in terms? Implied meaning is what is implied or hinted at, and not what is directly stated. So here, inferred, the key part is implied. So what we need to be able to look at is what is implied. What is implied or hinted at is not what is being directly stated. That means the user here, or the writer here of the website copy, is actually inferring the meaning. That means is actually alluding to something, but it is not saying it directly. So when I look at the phrase take the hassle out of public transport, is often used in marketing, something which I'm aware of. But what it basically says is that it removes the it I if now I have to write it in my own words. So this phrase in implies that the travel fare app, the fare travel app, essentially what is called fare travel bus app, will remove the time consuming task, time consuming, so again spelling, time consuming tasks of buying the tickets before travel, right? So this bit essentially is my inference of what does this mean, take the hassle out of public transport. That means it is telling us that this process, if you download the Fair Travel app, would make your process of using the buses, far more easier, more convenient, more easier, whichever way you want to put it. And that is what you need to write here in this particular answer. So going through and revising some of the topics which have been given here would be quite useful. And this is how I would suggest you should do it. Well, you open the test in one window, open the Moodle in the other, and obviously side by side, when you are actually answering a particular question and it comes related to a particular topic, you'd be able to see that each of these topics, is about 3 marks across in the question, because there are 10 topics multiplied by 3 is about 30 marks. So each of these topics would have at least one question or two questions, because marking of the question could be 1 mark or 2 mark or 3 mark, but you'll have 2 or 3 questions from each of the topic which will allow you to pass the test. Now it says choose your location, select and purchase a ticket. Now, is this type of text instructional or persuasive? Again, this is something that you would go across and look at in the textual features. When I look at the presentation here, what you're going to be able to see is that this is something which is going to be, mentioned here, that whether the language features are persuasive or instructional, and there are some examples which are also given. So when you say persuasive, you're trying to convince the reader of something. When you say it is instructional, that means you're passing it out as instruction. So an example is when you buy a new product or you buy something from the market. Most of these products and items that you buy come with some sort of an manual. That manual would tell you or give you the instructions to say how to install the watch or how to open the product, how to install the shelf, maybe a piece of furniture. So when they are looking at giving you guidance to be able to put things together or follow the guidance given to be able to get things right, those kind of text would be instructional. Persuasive would be in a situation wherein it is going to give you um, enough reasons that this is something which is right, you need to do this, you need to buy this because it has this benefit, that benefit. Or it will also talk about, say, for example, things in a way wherein you would normally, they will appeal to your emotions to say, okay, this is something I need to buy, this is something I need to try. And that is where you will look at. So choosing your location, select and purchase a ticket is basically persuasive. There is no instructions in this because it's saying it allows you to do all this, but it is highlighting the benefits of it, and that is where they are trying to persuade you to download the app. As your tickets get sent straight to your phone, you'll never have to queue again for tickets. So again, this is something which is instructional because they say as you buy your ticket through the fare bus fare app, the straight away the ticket is available to you, and this is more of an instructional example. Now, what does text warn readers of to be aware of using the app? Now, here, as you can see, the box here very clearly says if your phone is running low on battery and if your phone is not switched on and the battery is low, there is no way that you will be allowed to buy a digital ticket, or your digital ticket could not be confirmed, and hence you would need to pay for the ticket. So it warns the people or travelers to say you need to be able to display the ticket on your phone screen to show the driver when you're boarding the bus. This fare is non-refundable. If your phone battery becomes flat, you're unable to retrieve your ticket, then you will need to pay the driver for the journey. And that is what the app is actually warning making the users aware of. So this has been given in a blue box, which is highlighted because it is something which is important. So the website is actually trying to highlight this context, and it's put across in a box. Give one quotation for each of the following used in text. Now, rule of three. This is what I meant is that you have to go through, this presentation, because there are going to be certain areas of the text which will be something that you will need to spot. And essentially, when you look at spotting this, this is something which you can only do if you understand some of the organizational features which are used in the writing of the, I would say in this case, the website copy. Now, these are bits that you would need to understand because they are going to be looking at asking you to find out and quote something from the comprehension which has been given. Now, there are a couple of things that you look at. These are called language features, and these language features could be alliteration, cliche, command, direct address, use of personal pronouns, direct speech, emotive language, exaggeration, hyperbole, things like that. Now, what is the rule of three? Now, this would be something that you have to look at in the presentation, because unless you know what is the rule of three in English, there is no way that you'll be able to explain or pick out the exact phrase which is actually hinting towards the rule of three. Now, rule of three in English is actually used in places when you're trying to use persuasive language. That means this is a way that is going to be used in English where the writer is going to use a trio of entities or events or characters to basically stress on the fact that this is important, this is something which is required to be done, and that is what is going to be something that you will see appearing across in the document. That means the writer is going to be using three different instances in terms of its writing part. And in these three instances, the meaning of those sentences, phrases, the bit which the information which the writer is trying to convey is going to mean the same. And that is what is going to be called the rule of three. An example of rule of three would be, for example, when I say that this is, or the place that you're going to is going to be dark, cold, and dingy. So if I say I'm going to an alley and in that alley I'm going to be playing with my friends, my parents tell me that don't go to the alley because that place is going to be dark, cold, and dingy. Excuse me. That would imply that I am trying to stress on a fact that if you go and play in the alley, then there are certain things that you need to be aware of, and these things are not going to be useful or friendly. So, what I use the words, when I use the words dark, cold, and dingy, I'm trying to say to the child that, this is not a good place for you to go and play. But because I've used three similar words, which actually would imply or mean the same, like the alley is going to be dark, the alley is going to be cold because there's no sunlight coming to the ground, and then it is going to be dingy. That means because nobody frequents it, it is going to be unclean, untidy, and obviously, full of filth or garbage because people use it for dumping stuff. And that is where my reasoning of saying to the child is that you don't need to go to that place. And I am using three different words essentially to be able to highlight that thing. Now, what we need to be able to do is understand what is rule of three. That will happen if you go through some of these presentations, and that is where it will help you understand the lingo, the topics, and what in some cases the text actually means. Now, here, if I have to spot the rule of three, what we would need to look at is need to read this again and find out which sentence essentially is talking about three benefits or three negatives, or it could be something which is persuading me indirectly to say I need to look at downloading the Fair Travel app. So, rule of three in this case would be I would probably go and see and read this again and say, okay, I think they're trying to say that the travel fair travel bus app is going to be easier. So when I look at this, it says buy tickets in second with fewer clicks, anytime, anywhere. This is an example of rule of three. So why it is an example of rule of three? Because it says you buy the tickets in seconds. That means it is quicker. Then it says fewer clicks, which again means you have to click less or go to less diverted websites to be able to buy because it is going to be available on your app on your phone. And then it says anytime, anywhere. That means buying the ticket is going to be very, very easy, and it is easy because it is done in a few seconds on your app. It can be done at any given point in time, and it does not require any clicks. Because even when I look at buying something on the website, I would probably look at the product, add to the cart, after the cart, go and check out. When I check out, then it'll ask me to fill in the details, payment details. Then once I fill that in, it'll ask me to confirm everything, and then when I click yes, it'll buy the tickets. But on the app, because it resides on your phone, it would be far, far easier than to even buy on a website or go to the station, bus station, or a depot where the tickets are sold to be able to buy them. So this is an example of rule of three. That means it is going to say that finding something is going to be easier, and that is where the writer is going to emphasize by using three advantages, disadvantages of a particular type of text. Now, what is a rhetorical question? This is again a textual feature which is available, which you would need to understand. And these are bits that I opened in the presentation before, that you need to be able to understand the meaning of it. Then only then you'll be able to answer that particular question correctly. Now, there are bits and pieces in English that we say implied, expressly implied, and those are the bits that we need to be able to understand with regards to what does it mean. So a rhetorical question is a question which is normally asked in order to create a dramatic effect. That means it is going to be asked to make a point rather than to get an answer. This is the main part of what a rhetorical question is. The writer is going to not is going to tempt you as if they are asking a question, but essentially what the writer is trying to do is make a statement to say this is the point of getting the app, or this is the point why you need to get the app, because it is going to highlight or make a statement. So again, you would need to read this text again and understand where is it that he has made that rhetorical question. So I would pick this up, and there could be multiple answers to this particular question. And similarly for rule of three, it doesn't mean that you have only one right answer or only one of it, which will be signifying that there could be multiple ways. So I'll basically say you'll never need to queue again for tickets is a rhetorical question. No, we know that we queue in, we go and queue in places. Sometimes when you have to buy a ticket, you have to order something when you're getting food or things like that. So this bit, the writer is trying to say that, he's trying to make a point that you'll never need to queue again for tickets, but might not be entirely true. And that is why this tends to be a rhetorical question, because he's not actually asking you. What he's trying to do is say in a statement that, this is something that you will never need to do again. Now, you would also be allowed a dictionary in the test, in the reading test. So here it says, what does the word retrieve mean? You have to open the dictionary and obviously look at finding out the exact meaning of the word retrieve, and obviously put that in this context here. So when I look at the meaning of the word retrieve, you won't obviously have your phone or anything else. That is where we will be, providing you the dictionary, and that would need to be the exact meaning of the word retrieve used in this particular text on the left hand side. So here the word retrieve means to get or bring something, I would say, back from somewhere. Bring something back from somewhere. So this is the exact meaning of the dictionary word retrieve, and that is what I would need to write here. Now, you can spend 2 minutes to review your questions and answers, but because there are three sections in the test and you are looking at the time as well, so what you would need to do is move on to the next section. Again, when I go to the next section, you would see again something provided on the left hand side as text, and then there are going to be a number of questions that you would need to answer. So the first bit I would do, if I have to repeat, would be to read the paragraph, text, document, whatever is given carefully. Spend 5 minutes on it so that you don't need to go back and read again and again, and you can literally spot where the answer is, or where the answer to the question is coming from, which paragraph or which particular section which has been provided. Now here it says, according to text 2, what is the first thing that goes wrong in the app for Ollie? Now, it is following through on the bus fare app, and what it has done now is people are writing about the app after trying to use it. And one of the users, Ollie, has written a blog, and he talks about how his experience has been in terms of using the app. So first thing which goes wrong in the app, must have mentioned a couple of things, which are claimed by the app but actually are not working. And in such cases, what I need to be able to do is basically pick out something that is going wrong with the app, and he has pointed that out in his write-up. So, well, I was horrified to find out the bus I've been following had disappeared from the screen. So one of the things, I refreshed the page, however the bus was nowhere to be seen. I don't know how many times I hit refresh. Anyway, I got the same result, no bus on track. So what this means is, this is one way of looking at it. The other is, if I go by reading another paragraph, it says, by the time bus 2080 finally arrived, I was soaked through, blah, blah, blah. That means it was raining. So again, I need to go through and read where the app has actually messed up. So essentially, what you would need to do is, here, what I would see is, when I go through all this, I'm just, because we are looking at doing a session. So what I would say is, the tracking on the app is not accurate, and sometimes you can you can let's say sometimes it does not work. Simple answer. And that is what I can see, which I would say that the first thing that goes wrong in the app is the tracking of the bus sometimes does not happen, because he spends almost 3 paragraphs writing about it, and that is where this is related to the feature tracking of the app not working. Now, You have to, again, you got a meaning of the word optimistic that you need to find out what is the dictionary meaning of the word optimistic. So again, you would need to use the dictionary and use the dictionary to be able to find the meaning, of the word optimistic. And the reason I would say this is you need to be able to see and have a dictionary at home. Sometimes do a bit of practice. Okay, let me find the word, meaning of the word abstract. Let me find the meaning of the word this. And you should be able to go in and obviously look at, what does the word optimistic mean. Now, he remains optimistic about using the app, even though he has had some problems. So he uses the word optimistic because he is hopeful and confident. I put it this way, that the he's hopeful and confident about the future. Let's put it this way. That is the meaning of the word optimistic. And that would be answering that part of the question. And then you have again certain things that you need to look at in terms of language features used in the quotation. The bus was packed full like a tin of sardines. Now, here is a sentence, and what it is saying is what we need to be able to infer and mention, that what is this particular sentence. I don't want to mention what this sentence actually means, but here we need to be able to look at going into and finding out what kind of language feature is being talked about, which is given in the text here. Now, these are the different kind of language features that we normally see in the test which come across. So we looked at last time, it was rhetorical question. Now what we want to be able to find out is what kind of language feature is this. So this is something that you would only be able to decipher or answer correctly if you have gone through this particular presentation on the Moodle. So this one here would be basically a simile. The reason I put that it is going to be a simile is because it is comparing this situation of people standing in the bus to a tin can of sardines. That means they are packed. The bus is fully packed, and also you know it is an example like in most cases when you buy sardines, normally they are available in a tin pack and they squeeze a lot of these small fishes together. So it's a direct comparison, and that is why it is a simile. Now, it also says, give me an example of the word alliteration. Now, what is alliteration? We need to know what is the word alliteration means. This is where the first sound of the word repeats across a number of consecutive words. So simple sensational suits. S, S, S. Simple sensational suits. Funky flexible phone plans. Lovely long limousine. So as you would see, there's a repetition of the word S coming across, which in some cases when you read the sentence will sound similar, and this would be repeated across. So here you have to look at an example of alliteration, and that word which, or a sentence which essentially starts with the same words, would be that would be something that you would need to pick out in order to put this across as an answer. Now, in some cases, if you can't find anything, I would still say make a best guess, but the idea would be, if you know what is alliteration, you should be able to find that out. So find one example of alliteration. So it says answer two words only. So essentially you would need to give two words which are starting at the sentence, or at the beginning of a sentence or in the mid of the sentence, which are sounding or giving the impression that it is alliteration because they have the same sound. So it talks about things like, I figured out I needed to leave home at 8 a.m. Maybe not. First day at college, thanks to. So here you would need to read this part, carefully. Now, when I say I need to look at two words, I would need to look at words which are appearing consecutively, words which are meaning the same, words which are creating the similar sounds in a particular sentence. And that would help me understand or pick out the example of the word alliteration. Now, I had some cash on me, I could get onto the bus. So, I had some cash on me, I could get onto the bus. So, again, probably there but not there in the real sense. And the bus was packed full like a tin of sardines, with passengers standing over one another, staring into their phones. I spent the entire journey, stood up, dripping wet and miserable. Um, I'm not too sure, but I won't be able to, comment on this because this is something I will need to read in detail. Anybody who's looking at reading this particular text should be able to pick that out if you have, read it carefully. I figured out that I needed to leave home. I wouldn't have to worry. I wouldn't have to worry about in the morning. So maybe the two words that I would probably pick out, would be something related to the travel bus app, and that would be, so I was horrified to find the bus that I've been following have disappeared. So, yes, so I'll use the word horrified because obviously it has left me, wondering what has happened, and the word disappeared. They although do not sound very similar, but they are kind of alliteration because they're stressing on the fact that the status of the bus disappeared from the app, and that made me horrified. Or anyway, I got the same result that no bus was actually on track. Now, some of these questions, as you would see, are multiple type questions. Some of them ask you to use the dictionary. Some of them ask you to use the text from the, answers, for pick out answers from the text. Some of them are going to be multiple choice. So, which of the two quotations from text two are examples of informal language? So, informal language is where you're using emojis, as you can see. No bus to track, home later. So, let's see where it is coming up. So, app totally messed up. It is going to be use of words which you normally and don't end up using in English, or you use it with somebody that you are very familiar with. I left home at 8 a.m. as planned. I dropped my mates. So this is one. I've dropped my mates, or I normally would use in a formal English, I drop my friends a text, but I've used the word mates. So this is informal. And then this is one sentence. It is asking me to pick out two. However, the bus was nowhere to be seen. By now, I'm feeling extremely sorry for myself, or the app totally messed up. These could be the two areas that I think, would be using informal language. Messed up and, mates. Now, Ollie's phone battery goes flat. Give two ways how he is affected. So, one, he will need to pay the bus fare to the driver, because if the phone battery is off, there is no way that you'll be able to, use electronic ticket or the app to be able to show your ticket. And the second is, if the phone battery goes flat, what would happen essentially is you would basically, ways in which the user could be affected is that you would be required required to buy a physical ticket from the driver. So one, I can't use the app because my phone is switched off. Second, if my phone is not working, I have to buy a ticket on entry. And second, if the ticket verification is to happen, I would need to actually, pay for the ticket because my app has got closed and there is no refundable fare. So things like that, you would need to go through this text and see and then write it down. Now, from the question, you would need to refer to text one and two. Section three essentially is going to ask you to refer to text section 1 and section 2 of the text. So here, what I would need to do is make some comparisons. It could be to do with picking out things which are related to the section, or again, this is something which is like a text which has been given, and from this text, I'm actually looking at finding these answers. So again, going into this is a third text. This seems to be to me a land-born mail, which is like a newspaper, and then there is an article which has been presented, or a journalist has written an article about bus, fair travel bus blame a lack of footfall for closure of Landborn's main bus ticket office. So people have, what the journalist has written is that the people have taken to the app, and because they've taken to the app, what has happened is the local office in the city street, which used to dispense ticket, where people used to come in and actually buy tickets, has actually ended up closing because the app has been quite successful. Now, reading this particular paragraph and the text essentially would allow you to answer some questions. So it says, apart from buying tickets, give one other benefit of ticket office for passengers mentioned in the text. Now, we need to see and find out what is being written by reading through this. Why was the ticket office frequented by people? What was the other benefit to the travelers or people who were coming and visiting the office? So there was a huge increase in online, blah blah blah, and, more passengers using my phone. Okay, and however, all person do not. So I'm going to read this very quickly. So the article talks about many different advantages of technology. One of the things that it also says about the the office is that the office was frequented by a lot of people because and the office was actually employing staff. So there were uh, people in the bus ticket office who provided assistance, because your app cannot provide you assistance. It can only give you answers from a list of database of questions, who provided assistance in physical sense. So basically what I'm trying to say is the office, a lot of people did not have access to the internet, and if they don't have access to the internet or a smartphone, then they still need instructions or guidance. So having a person to speak to allowed these people to be able to obviously get assistance in by meeting somebody in person. Now, next question is, it says include facts and opinion. Identify two facts about passengers. Now, there are two things that we need to identify, which the journalist is very clearly writing, and it is backed up by other statistics, and it is something which is not an opinion. It is clearly factual. It can be backed up by facts, figures, or some sort of data which has been calculated or accumulated over a point in time. Those are the two things that we need to write here. Now, it says 80% of the population is making online purchases in 2024. This is something which is backed up by research data. So, again, this is a fact. Now, the second thing is, it says this figure is set to rise to 87%, by 2027. So when I say online shopping, this is a fact about online shopping in the UK. And if I look at online shopping in the UK and I say is set to rise by 87% by 2027. As you can see, there's a small asterisk here, and it says research data taken from Consumer and Customer Commerce UK 2025. So it's a report, and this is an accurate fact. It is not an opinion. It is not me saying, oh, generally I feel the internet, shopping is catching up. And everybody will generally shop online. This is my opinion, but actually, how do I back this up? Until I go through a report or research, I won't be able to say this. So as you can see, this bit are the two facts that we have written and picked out from the article, which is what it is asking us to do. Then we go to the next question. And similarly, what you would do is go through all these questions at the end of it, give two quotations which show Trishna Molumbi is biased about the bus fare app. So first thing we need to look at, what is it, where is it that she's saying it. So Molumbi's view is bus fare best thing slides of is hard to take. So this is an opinion. She's saying this is the best thing which has ever happened and everybody needs to try this. So this is an opinion, and she's too positively talking about the bus fare app. The other thing is the ticket office is lifetime revenue. So, for example, she would also make another point that we need to pick out. And again, the word here gives me the clue. Would not comment on the closure or possible job losses. So again, she is showing no empathy or sympathy towards the closure of the office. And again, it shows that she's biased towards the app and the usage of that app. So sometimes you would get to see these kind of questions. If you're reading the article or the text very clearly, you'd be able to spot these answers straight away from the text. As you would see, I have not written pretty much anything on my own. Everything is coming from the text which is provided. So reading the text becomes very important for you to be able to get the test, guess the answer, and get it right, and obviously pass the first time. Now, what does the writer three text imply when she says Molumbi's view may be hard to take? That means her views on the usage of the app are very, very aggressive or very enthusiastic. You have to decide here. Now, this bit again is something which you are able to pick out by going into another topic from which this question has come. And this would be related to, the previous one was when it asked about facts and information. This is where you would need to read. And then when it says why you want to look at, this bit, which is her views may be hard to take. This is where the analysis needs to happen because you have been asked to justify why her opinion in the article is quite, she's taking a stance or she's being quite hard on that stance. So, in some cases, you're going to be looking at understanding how the analysis has to be done, and that would require you to go through this particular topic in the Moodle, and that is looking at understanding the main bits of analyzing text. Now, in a sentence, obviously, sometimes when you look at sentences, they start with formal to becoming informal. There are various ways in which we can spot where the sentence is actually going to be aggressive, whether there's a use of active voice, passive voice, different types of places in which I'm addressing the person first hand or I'm referring to them in second person. And these are features that you would need to look at understanding before you can even analyze the text. So there are some bits which are given here. And when I look at this bit, I would say it's very enthusiastic because she is talking only of the benefits of the app. She is not bothered about talking about the disadvantages of the app. Like, for example, Ollie's blog mentioned that if your phone battery dies or if the app information is not accurately fed in, then it will not be able to provide you information about a bus or the route that you're tracking. So, again, it is not aggressive. She's not trying to imply and impinge her points onto you. She's not being insensitive. She's not being unclear. She's very clear that the app is helpful. The app does this, the app does that. And she sounds very enthusiastic. So that is what you would need to choose as an answer to this particular question. Now it says information about customer behavior. So where does the writer actually talk about the information about customer behavior? So you would need to actually look at text from this place which would point out something related to customer behavior. Now, I would spot this in the first paragraph straight away because this is a behavioral trend which has been quoted by the writer Pat, saying that consumers are now moving to online shopping and the online shopping trend is bound to continue. It is going to increase over the years, and he's using some statistics or data from the report. This is what is actually showing the behavior. So, customers shopping online in the UK. This is a behavior because it's showing huge increases in what you normally do. I used to go out to the market, the local grocery store to do my shopping, but nowadays, in order to save time, we order food or, a grocery by Tesco's or Morrison's or Sainsbury's online and it gets delivered to your home. So this trend is not something which was my habit. This is something which has happened over a point in time. And because I'm now ordering more and more rather than going to the stores, what you're seeing is some stores are closing because there's less traffic. They are not able to recoup money, and customers are getting used to shopping online because the food or the grocery actually gets delivered to your doorstep. So, this is a habit. This is something which is a behavior that you're seeing a change in, and it's happening. So, which word describes the tone of voice? Again, this is a presentation that you would need to go through, which is given in the topic list. And this would come across by looking at identifying, the textual features. And these textual features would essentially specify whether the tone is conversational, challenging, enthusiastic, objective. So here, the article written by Pat Hargreaves and the tone of the article is basically more conversational because the journalist is trying to give you information but at the same time trying to extract your opinion about it, and that is where this part of the conversation is termed as the write-up in the article is termed as conversational. Now there are some questions related to the text too, because this section consists of both. It says which one of the following statements about text 2 and 3 is correct. So comparing this one along with the previous text, which is written by Pat Hargreaves, which of the two is correct. So both contexts encourage you to purchase ticket, both texts explain impact of bus travel on passengers, both give information on purchasing ticket, post instruct messengers too on how the bus fare travel apps works. So not necessarily here it gives information, yes, both texts give impact of, yeah. So basically both of them are talking about, what is the impact of how customer habits are changing, why they're buying tickets. And obviously in general, here the experiences of Ollie explain what problems he has faced. But on the other article, it talks about the impact it is having on the local office, bus office, and why people are shopping online. So this, I think, is a statement which is actually correct. And this brings us to the end of the test. Now, if you're able to time yourself and do across the three sections, you can go and review if you feel you need to review any, because there's still 12 minutes left. If you feel everything is fine, then you can go and finish the test. And obviously, you get a result in 7 working days from NCFE. We will come to know the results, and obviously, we will share them with you, because this is one of the parts of the test that you need to be able to complete to essentially get the certification. So, how to go about perfecting, what kind of things would be asked in the reading exam. You are looking at three things in particular. One, there'll be text given or passage or text given, and from that you have to read and then find the answers. You have to go through some of the topic list in the reading part specifically, unlike writing, is because you need to know the meanings of the text, the organizational features, the textual features, and in some cases, what does the word or the phrase actually mean. So that could be related to analysis or essentially understanding implied and inferred meanings of the text. Each of these sections that we have been created on Moodle is supported by a short video. And this video essentially would give you very clear idea in terms of what is required and what is the rationale behind this bit that you need to know so that you are able to confidently then sit the test. So most of the answers come from the text itself. You are able to copy and paste. The box sizes show you the amount of text that you need to write. You would need to revise some of this topic list, which is given in the reading part of it, so that you're able to clearly know the meanings of the questions which is being asked and then confidently pick out the answers from the text which is given. So I hope this brings us to the end of this session. I hope this session has been useful. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. Otherwise, what I will do is also share a copy of this recording with you on the WhatsApp group so that you are able to go back and obviously look at some bits of it that we've discussed. Any questions, Hasna? Okay, Awa, any questions at your end? Okay, I won't hold you guys for long because I know there's a math session which has started with Humza. So I will let you get on with that session and I will catch up with you next week to discuss some of these topics related information, for the reading part of the test. So go ahead and obviously do some revisions, do some reading from the Moodle. Just look at these presentations and videos. They are short videos, about 4 or 5 minute long. It will not take you more than an hour to go through the entire section. And then at a later stage, once you've completed, you can actually go in and do a practice test here to see what parts of it you are confidently understanding and able to go through. My suggestion would be to look at opening them side by side. So you have the sections here, and then you have the test which is running. That will allow you to go and read some of these topics straight away to understand and practically implement by live looking at what is being asked and what is the topic, and that would also sometimes help you crystallize and memorize that in your mind. So once again, thank you for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak to you guys next week. Thank you and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.